Hello and welcome back to Charlotte at the Invitational. I am Nick Miller on the sideboard alongside Hall of Famer William Huey Jensen. How are you doing today?
Great, how are you?
Great. Everyone will know Huey because he is number 2 in the Players' Championship right now, right behind Brian Braun-Duin. And we are talking to you today because you chose to sleeve up Reanimator.
Yep.
And of course you've played Sneak and Show in the past, Invitationals. I want to know why you're going with Reanimator, then I want you to explain how great this deck is and why everyone should play it.
Well, partly I'm just a little bit bored of Sneak and Show, but I'm not bored of putting Gristlebrand into play. So that was a natural next step. This deck, I like the fact that so much of it costs 1 mana. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of the Blue Search, Ponder, Brainstorm, Careful Study, Entomb, and Reanimate, all 1 mana. That's 19 cards or something like that. The combo's cheap and easy. And I think people are skimping a little bit on Graveyard Hate and Legacy these days. Back when Gristlebrand came out, I think that everybody expected this to be a really popular deck, but it hasn't seen that much play. I mean, you get it, at some opens and some invitationals, but it's not like, it's not to the level people are playing Sneak and Show or whatever. So.
Now, you mentioned you're tired of Sneak and Show. Do you think this deck is better than Sneak and Show?
Probably comparable, to be honest. I mean, I think Sneak and Show is a really good deck, but also people are trying very hard to hate it at this point.
So do you think you're going to try to dodge the Sneak and Show hate and combo?
Probably gets targeted quite a bit similarly, honestly, but like things like Swan Song, maybe not quite as good because your threats in this deck cost 1 and 2 instead of 3 and 4. A card like, Red Elemental Blast is a lot worse against this deck. That's not so reliant on show and tell. Okay. But in general, really just a change of pace. I think they're similar power level, and I wanted to try something.
So this deck, of course, is utilizing spells like Entomb, Careful Study to get your big fatties in the graveyard, and then bring them back to life with Reanimate and Exhume.
Yep.
Explain your choice for fatties, because everyone loves the Gristlebrand.
All right,
and some people have some other monsters.
So for Gristlebrand, that's easy. He's just the best one, right? I mean, you can't put Emrakul in the deck, so what are you going to do? Elish Norn is just really good against creature decks, especially a deck maybe like Elves or Merfolk. You get it in play and they just lose the game, more or less. I mean, so that's a pretty, Goblins even. It's a pretty auto-include, I think. It's just cards that just win the game
on themselves.
Just they come into play and the game's over, usually are good in a deck like this. So Ashen Rider is sort of like a catch-all. Who knows what people are going to play. It can kill a Karakas, it can kill a, if they show and tell in Omniscience and you happen to have that guy in your hand, you can spike the Omniscience or things like that. It's actually pretty good if you ever get it and play against Sneak and Show. They can't really attack you with Emrakul, because you can eat the Emrakul. I mean, they can attack you, but you don't have to, put all your lands and play with this deck. And Sphinx of the Steel Wind is just a second card that's very good to race with. If, like, for some reason the Gristlebrand plan isn't working, like maybe they, surgical extraction your Gristlebrand or Ruined Halo Gristlebrand or something like that, and you need to race. This guy's still a flying big lifelinker. It doesn't draw 7 cards every turn, but, it can still get the job done.
Now, Reed Duke, one of your teammates, obviously, and Owen Turnwald are on this build, and Reed said that Owen suggested this card, and you guys were on it. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, that's more or less what happened. Like, we had this
unbridled
slot,
excitement.
Not exactly. We had this slot ready. We had a couple cards to talk about, and more or less Owen said, "Well, I'm just going to play this Sphinx," and we said, "All right, whatever." This is definitely the 60th card, but it definitely has obvious benefits.
What are your opinions, and why are you choosing not to use cards like Tidespout, Tyrant, and the and Iona for your reanimation targets?
Well, sort of felt that like Iona does a lot similar to Gristlebrand. Like Iona literally locks some decks out of the game, obviously. But if they have a way to deal with Iona, you're much worse off than if they had a way to deal with your Gristlebrand, because you get to refill your hand and start over. Iona's good. I mean, it's in the sideboard. But for a main deck card, we just thought that like game 1, these cards are all pretty reliable. Iona's a little slow, like against decks that are fast. The fact that she doesn't have lifelink, like, if they were to play a Delver and a Tarmogoyf, you get Iona in play, and you can't even really be attacking because they're 7 for 7, and you might have had to take 7 to reanimate. But with Gristlebrand, it's not like that, or with the Sphinx. So ultimately, we just decided that Iona was good enough, but for the sideboard, but not quite good enough for the main deck.
And is the racing situations the reason why you require so much lifelink?
Yes.
You brought that up.
That comes up a lot, especially because Reanimate does damage to you equal to the converted mana cost. So, these creatures cost 8, 8, 8, 7. So you're taking a lot of damage. I mean, fetch lands, and you can theoretically, be at 7, 6, 5 life after you reanimate. So you need to get some of that back, or you're just going to get attacked to death.
Now let's look at the sideboard. You have a couple other targets. You've got the old Blazing Archon, which is a fun one. And you've mentioned in the past you've liked Jace, the Mind Sculptor, in your Sneak and Show sideboards, but I have not seen it in a lot of sideboards. So explain why you like it so much.
Well, for me, I always liked to have, especially playing these decks with sort of a pretty narrow attack plan, right? Like you're going to put a big monster in play and you're going to win with it. This attack plan might even be a little more narrow because it's so graveyard dependent. So with cards like Jace and Show and Tell, you get to attack from a different angle. So if they're boarding in all their Grafdigger's Cages and Coffin Purges or whatever, rest in peace, and then you get to play Show and Tell and put Gristlebrand to play that way, or just cast Jace and win with that. It's just another, it's a way to punish people who sideboard in 10 anti-graveyard cards and that's all they draw. And then you can win the game that way.
All right. Explain the thought process and the reasonings you three had on coming to this deck and all basically playing the exact list.
Well, truth be told, we just decided, hey, we're going to try Reanimator, and we built this list and we agreed on it and we're playing it.
Sounds like a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
So with the Players Championship coming, season 1 of the Players Championship coming to a head this weekend.
Yep.
You're in second place. Is this the deck you thought, this is the deck that can lock it up for me if you make the top 8? Or,
I certainly think if I make the top 8, this deck gives me a great chance. But in reality, BBD's really far ahead.
Right.
If he does anything respectable, I need to come in second to finish, which I'm pretty confident that, whatever. I'm going to give the tournament my best shot, but I think being realistic, it's very unlikely that I'm going to pass him this weekend.
What would you set your odds at passing him?
My odds of getting second, I'll assume I have to get second or better in the Invitational.
Sure.
How many people do you know?
I don't know the exact number.
Let's call it 250.
Okay.
So my odds of getting first or second, probably 3% maybe.
What would Reed and Owen say your percentages are at winning this tournament?
At winning or getting top 2? Winning is
top 2.
Top 2, probably about the same. They're pretty mathematical guys.
All right, I would give you a slightly higher percentage.
Maybe it's maybe because it includes second, it's 4.5 or something. 4, right. But I also don't know the number of people.
That's irrelevant.
It's a tough tournament.
You'll slog your way through, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll try.
All right. Well, from the sideboard, Huey Jensen, Nick Miller. Stay tuned more all weekend long for all the action here at the Invitational.